Congrats, you're born in North Korea. Welcome to a life of control, surveillance, and no freedom. From day one, your name, your thoughts, and even your future are decided for you by the state. Want to explore the world? Too bad. The government controls everything, from the history you learn to the music you hear. No internet, no free speech, no choice. You're basically living in a world where you're not really alive. You're just going through the motions, hoping you don't attract attention. Let's start with the education system. You don't get to pick your major, your hobbies, or even the books you read. The government's curriculum is the only thing you get, and trust me, it's not exactly freedom of thought. The history you learn? Well, it's basically just one giant love letter to the regime. Forget about learning anything about the outside world, or that whole critical thinking thing. Instead, you're taught that the country's leaders are literal gods, and that they've solved all of humanity's problems. Want to learn about the rest of the world? Sorry. You'll get a carefully curated version of history that paints North Korea as the world's shining beacon of success. And don't even think about accessing information outside of what's approved. No internet, no Google. You're not allowed to have access to the wealth of knowledge that the rest of the world has. Instead, you get state-approved content that's more about glorifying the regime than informing you. Ever try to look something up and get a 404-page not found situation? Welcome to the internet in North Korea, where even the most basic information is tightly controlled. So much for keeping up with the world, huh? Now let's talk about freedom, or the lack of it. Imagine living in a place where every single aspect of your life is controlled. Want to go out for a walk? You need permission? Want to wear something that's a little too Western? Forget it. If you don't look and act exactly as the government says you should, you'll be punished. It's like living in a constant state of fear, knowing that one wrong move could end up with you being hauled off to some camp for re-education. But don't worry, it's not a fun spa retreat. It's a place where your life gets stripped away and your entire identity is erased so you can become a good citizen again. And here's a fun little fact: food. You'd think that, in a country, you'd at least get to eat, right? Think again. Food isn't something you just pick up when you're hungry. It's something that's rationed out by the government. And if you're lucky, you might get a decent meal. If you're not, well, you'll have to make do with whatever scraps you can find. Oh, and if you dare to complain, the government is listening. The last thing you want to do is upset the wrong person, because that can mean a trip to a re-education center or worse. So, you'll keep your mouth shut and pray that your daily meal doesn't come with a side of fear. Speaking of fear, let's talk about privacy, or more accurately, the lack of it. The government is always watching, and I mean always. Your phone? Bugged. Your television? Bugged. Your neighbors? Definitely reporting on you. You could be sitting in your living room thinking you're alone, but the whole time, the government is listening to your every word, watching your every move. And don't even think about having a private conversation with your family. It's like living in a fishbowl. Everyone is always peering in, waiting for you to slip up. And if you do slip up, say goodbye to your privacy, and, probably, your freedom too. Want to leave North Korea? Too bad. If you try to escape, you're not just breaking a law, you're committing an act of treason. And in North Korea, treason isn't a slap on the wrist. It's a one-way ticket to a labor camp, or worse. Oh, and don't think about sneaking out quietly. The border is heavily guarded, and if you try to cross it, you'll likely be shot before you even make it halfway. But let's say you somehow manage to escape. Great. You're free. Except you're not really free, because now your family has to pay for your crime. That's right, your escape doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone you care about. Your freedom comes with a hefty price tag for your loved ones. So, escaping is a nice thought, but it's not something that'll happen for you. Now let's talk about your future, or rather, the lack of one. In North Korea, there's no such thing as dreaming big. Your future is already decided for you. From the day you're born, your life is mapped out by the government. Want to be a scientist? Too bad. You'll be a factory worker instead. Want to be a doctor or an artist? Nope. Better get used to the idea of working in a labor camp or a farm. The country's leaders have decided that your contributions are going to be in the service of the regime. And if you try to defy that, well, we've already talked about the consequences. You're stuck in a never-ending cycle of survival. Your life is defined by what the government allows you to do, say, and think. Want to be yourself? Tough luck. Your identity is shaped by the regime, and it's not like you have any say in the matter. It's like living in a prison where the bars are invisible, and the walls are made of fear. You don't get to be who you want to be, you get to be exactly what the regime needs you to be. Let's talk about your identity for a second, because it doesn't really belong to you. You don't get to decide who you are. No, in North Korea the state gets to decide that. You're told what your opinion should be, who your heroes are, and how you should view the world. Want to express yourself or have your own interests? Too bad. The only identity you're allowed to have is the one that fits the narrative the regime wants to push. You're nothing but a cog in the machine, a small piece of their propaganda machine. And if you dare to step outside of that mold, you're a problem. Your thoughts, not yours. Your desires, not yours. Your entire identity is defined by the regime's ideology, and if you try to break free, you're labeled a threat. So forget about discovering who you are or finding out what makes you you. That's not allowed in a world where conformity is your only job. And let's talk about the great leader for a moment. Because every day, you're fed the same tired promises that he's the one who's going to save you. You're told that you live in the best country in the world, that everything is great because of him, and that your loyalty will be rewarded. Except, it's all a lie. The reality? You're stuck in a constant state of deprivation, with nothing to show for your blind allegiance except fear. The promises of prosperity, freedom, and greatness, those only exist in government speeches and propaganda posters. In reality, you're living in poverty, with no access to basic needs, while the leaders sit in luxury, pretending that everything is fine. And even worse, you're made to worship the man who's doing nothing for you but keeping you in line. If you dare question the reality of it all, well, there's always a nice re-education camp waiting for you. The promises of a better life under the great leader, they'll never come true because they were never meant to. So why does it suck to be born in North Korea? Because your entire life is controlled, from your name to your future, and there's no way out. You can't think for yourself, you can't move freely, and you can't express your thoughts. You're trapped in a world where the government decides everything for you and punishes you for stepping out of line. Privacy? Forget it, you're constantly watched. Want to leave? Well, if you try, it could mean the end of your life as you know it, and the lives of your loved ones too. Life in North Korea isn't about living, it's about surviving day after day under a regime that doesn't care about you, only about maintaining control. Keep your head down, follow the rules, and never question anything. Welcome to your life.